All right, so here's a nice one. All right, in the Nintendo 64 game GoldenEye 007, Rare originally intended to include Roger Moore, Timothy Dalton, and Sean Connery as playable characters in multiplayer. The plan was scrapped prior to release, but the character models for these famed actors were still on the cartridge. In 2005, a group called the Rare Witch Project cracked the game's code and found them. Interesting. I love all these little things that you can find.
Like the Easter eggs. Oh, I love Rareware's Easter eggs.
Oh, yeah. Shoot. Most of my childhood was Rare games. Donkey Kong 64, probably one of my favorite games of all time. Yellow cartridge, hello.
Dude, anytime there was like a different color cartridge, it could be the shittiest game. It could be like Barbie's Horse World. It'd be like, why is pink?
It's so pink. I must have.
No, thank you.
What?
You didn't enjoy Barbie's Horse World? You sexist.
Thank you.
But we're live. This is the Rants and Saves podcast. Welcome, everyone. This is our redo of episode 1. If you saw the first one, delete it from your mind. Do it right now.
Never happened.
Ron,
What are you talking?
What do you do?
What first podcast?
get in frame, please.
I'm in the frame.
Ish. I mean,
Ish.
look, I'm seeing your Asian nipples. I want to see your Asian face. And we have myself, Dave. I'll be one of your hosts. Ron joining me with his squinty visuals over there. And then the guy that you can't see but you can hear is Crush. And we are Rants and Saves. We're going to be talking about some video game things tonight. And I want to start you off with some interesting gaming facts. Do we need to go over any of the ones that we read off air? Like, were any of those worthy of airtime right now? I kind of think
like the Comboy one. I'm so close to mispronouncing that one. It's just funny. I think we need to go over that.
Yeah, so
That's
check.
definitely interesting.
One letter off from being Ron approved. All right, so it's the Nintendo Comboy. South Korea put a ban. By the way, this information comes to us from GameInformer.com. The person that wrote the article was Andrew Rayner. So check this out. Interesting facts about the gaming industry. Nintendo Comboy. South Korea put a ban on Japanese cultural imports following World War II, and it wasn't lifted until 2004. That didn't mean South Korean gamers didn't get to know Mario. Hyundai Electronics distributed Nintendo's product in South Korea. The NES was called the Hyundai Comboy, which was superseded by the Super Comboy and the Comboy 64. It's so close to being something else. Use your imagination. Insert other vowel here. Here's an interesting.
They got to play the Comboy 64.
Oh man, I can't.
Did I play with my Comboy?
My Comboy brings all the boys to the yard. Check this out. Sonic the Hedgehog is inside all of us. Get a load of this. A gene and protein that separates your right brain from the left and determines you have two eyes is called Sonic Hedgehog. The gene symbol is SHH. The name wasn't inspired directly by the game, but a comic book series. A British postdoc named Robert Riddle drew inspiration from a Sonic comic his 6-year-old daughter was reading. The gene appropriately has a spiky appearance.
Nice.
We got the Sonic in all of us. I'm wearing the shirt. It doesn't have Sonic's face on it.
Wearing blue today.
Are you wearing blue? Gray. Man, you have me questioning things sometimes. Last time we tried an episode, weren't we all wearing the same color? Or was that just me?
Last time, yeah.
We're forgetting about last time. Like I said, this is the Rants and Saves podcast. We want to talk about something that, let's be honest, I'm pretty much a shill for Google at this point. With cloud gaming being a big talking point these days, I kind of wanted to go over what I guess the cultural ramifications, the gaming cultural ramifications of cloud gaming, what it's going to mean kind of for the future. So I think cloud gaming is kind of the way forward. Who are the big contenders right now for cloud gaming? You got Microsoft with their xCloud, right? You got Google with their Stadia. I've even heard that both Amazon and Walmart want to get in the game. But for those of you not familiar with the concept, cloud gaming, pretty much in a nutshell, is that you don't have a console anymore. You have, at least in terms of Stadia. Some of the other ones, we'll get into how xCloud is different than Stadia and vice versa. But basically with Stadia, all you have is a controller. And it doesn't have to be the Stadia controller. It can be an Xbox controller, a PlayStation. You could even do a keyboard and mouse if you wanted to, for those PC enthusiasts out there. But what basically is going to happen is, as long as you have a decent internet connection, you can stream the games to your TV or your laptop, a tablet. They're saying, basically any device that you have that can, at least with Stadia, that can run a Chrome browser, you'll be able to play on it. Certain cell phones, like they've got their Pixel phone targeted right now as the main phone that you'll be able to do, obviously with others opening up in the future. But I'm of the opinion that streaming is how it's all going to be in a few years anyway. There's massive amounts of data suggesting that we as gamers are doing almost exclusively, well, not exclusively, but the majority of our gaming is taking place digitally. People aren't doing near as much physical media business. You can see that in how it's affected GameStop and the share prices, and they're kind of freaking out trying to restructure. But, I mean, talk to me, Ron. Am I wrong for being a complete and utter shill for Google right now?
You're a complete and utter shill.
I mean,
you're not wrong in your prediction of the future, but fuck you and your Stadia.
Did you just say butt fuck on the air? That's not appropriate.
Do we need to bust out the George Carlin 7 dirty words? Because I have them right here in this.
I have to find.
Whatever.
I have to find a I need a censorship thing. I don't have it. Never mind.
Now, Dave,
half of it is just going to be beeped out.
Why don't you indulge how much you getting paid by Google for this? Because you seem to be sucking their cock a lot lately. Sucking their beep a lot lately.
Sucking their
This is live.
It is live. We're doing this live. Anyway, I just think, yeah, that's the way forward. I don't know how many years it's going to take for that to be mainstream. Right now, my prediction is that it's going to be an accessory. It'll be an add-on to your current gaming setup for a while. And if it never catches on, then I'm wrong. But here's the big thing that I really like about Stadia. I've wanted to have a gaming PC for a long time. I wanted to be able to do that 4K 60 frames that, Stadia is advertising. But I don't have, all my PC friends, you don't have to spend tons and tons of money. You can literally just quit. No. Don't pet it. You don't have to have, they tell me, you don't have to have, $3,000 to put together a PC. No, I agree. I could spend $800. Here's the thing, though. I need that money for bills. So when Stadia came out and said, hey, you can get the whole shebang for $140, I was like, that's a pretty attractive offer. If you can deliver me the performance and all that stuff. Worst case scenario, they can't do it. And come November, despite my having no cap on my internet here, despite my having good upload, good download, and very stable internet, if they can't deliver me the performance, what am I out? $140. But, that's still, $600-$700 less than a medium range gaming PC. And I don't have to, by the way, there's a lot of misconception out there. I don't have to spend anything monthly to pay for Stadia if I don't want to. I'm not contracted into it. I don't have to buy a year. I can literally do it $10 a month.
have to. So I think it's full disclosure time because of the three of us here, despite your Stadia shilling, I think I'm the only one with any financial goal right now. So disclaimer, my whopping years of Google. Okay, all right. Now that we have that out of the way, no. So Stadia is actually a really cool concept. Now that you mentioned the price and the because they don't have to pay anything that you don't want to. So like Netflix, if you're for one thing, you still have to pay the $10 a month. And that's it. Like, too bad. You still have to pay $10 a month. You really technically have to pay anything that you don't want to, right? Because the $140 is optional. The only thing that you have to pay for, really, like, pay for the stuff that's available for free, whatever, over the subscription. You don't really have to, which is kind of a neat concept for gaming. It's really, like, I know that's a Silicon Valley buzzword, but it kind of is. It makes gaming available to anyone with like a decent internet connection. So I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it really sets the bar of entry pretty low for anyone who's been, for people of limited means. Like, let's be honest. If you're not going to charge me any monthly fee to be able to play on Stadia, like the cloud is the platform. They've said in their stuff. By the way, what is today? The 6th? On the 19th, Google is having another Stadia Connect. I'm really interested to hear what they say. Are they going to tell me about, some new partnerships with some new developers? Or not new developers, but more developers, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm excited to see, like I saw someone mention today, they would like to see Infinity Ward, like the people that, Infinity Ward and some of the other developers that handle Treyarch, the Call of Duty guys. I'm not super into Call of Duty, so I don't keep up with that a whole lot. But, I'd like to see some of the developers like Bethesda, for instance. I would love to see Fallout 76 end up on Stadia. Why? Because Stadia, like Google has said, what we want to do is make cross-play and cross-saves a thing. If they manage to make that happen, then potentially I, on Stadia, could play with my brother on PC, and he's spent a ton of time on his character on PC. He does not have uncapped internet, so Stadia is kind of out for him. Even though he has a good connection, you would breeze through, like if Stadia was your main way of gaming, you'd breeze through your internet cap in no time. I forget what the numbers are, but it's just not practical. So, that being said, I would still love to have that possibility. Bethesda makes it out there, and now all of a sudden I can play with my brother. Oh, that would be amazing. Again, if it doesn't happen, what am I out? $140? It's really not that bad.
And it could be better because the only reason why you're out $140 is because you're a Google shield. Had you not bought the Founders Day thing, you would be out like.
Yeah. I mean, if I wanted one of their controllers, and I was willing to wait until next year, it'd be what, $70 for their controller instead?
Something like that. And it works as like a normal controller with other stuff if you really wanted to, right? Like you could use it as a gamepad for a PC. It's just.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, a couple of reasons why I'm decided to pre-order. Obviously, I wanted to get my foot in the door with being able to choose my name early. Don't have to have all the X's, dashes, and numbers and all that BS that you usually have to put on a name. So that's kind of cool. You get the limited edition controller. One thing, what? I've been wondering. They've said that the Founders Edition is basically while supplies last. But it's been months, and people are still pre-ordering. I'm kind of wondering, did they have this really super high expectation for how many pre-orders they were going to get, and they're just, falling way short of that because they're still accepting pre-orders? Or is it that, there's just way less interest than we think?
It's probably the way less interest because, your internet is great. That's not so great like the western states like Montana and Oregon, well, not just Oregon, Montana, Idaho,
Yeah,
like some of the mountainous states, they're like really wide open. They don't have the internet. Like they mostly have to depend on like satellite internet. Unless you live in like freaking Seattle or Atlanta, like big cities, your internet is going to be the hindrance on Google Stadia.
yeah. And I think another thing that some people either they misunderstand or they're like, in my opinion, unreasonably enraged about is the fact that you have to buy games on Stadia. I mean, it really has to do with your mindset about gaming in general, okay? Do you not expect to have to pay for games just because it's not something that you physically hold in your hand? Now, Ron, I know you're one of those guys that likes to have the physical disc, right? Like a lot of your collection is all physical. Is that your gaming collection behind you?
Oh, I have a whole like collection. It would take both this and the shelf on the other side of the fireplace.
Yeah. So, I mean, there is something to be said, and I completely understand when they say, "Oh, well, you don't truly own the game." Okay, well, riddle me this. All right, when you buy a digital game on your current platform, whether it's on Steam or on Xbox, if you download the digital version, or like me on PlayStation, I have a ton of digital games. What's stopping them from disabling your access to it? The PC players might have a little bit of an edge on that one because, if they literally have the exe file on their hard drive, I mean, far be it from anyone to be able to take that away. But still, digital gaming is on the rise.
I kind of play devil's advocate here because I think it's two different models. The idea is that $60 and you game for as long as Stadia. One day Google decides Stadia is not a thing anymore, or if one day all the Stadia data centers all of a sudden get hit by an asteroid, you can't play the game anymore. You can be connected to the internet, not connected to the internet, but you can't play the game anymore. Contrast that with the consoles, right? So let's say, example, because that's an online only game. Let's say I downloaded on the Xbox. I've done this before, that you can pull out the Ethernet cable, is that the DRM isn't constantly communicating with servers. Now, is that to say that Microsoft can't go in and revoke my DRM? Sure, they can do that, but it takes a conscious effort on Microsoft's part to pull that away, right? Whereas with Google, it can happen in theory, or if Google happens to go under, or if any of these numbers of things happen that prevents you from accessing the game happens, access to the game that you... So it's a new model. Now, is that to say it's invalid? I think there's a lot of value in Google delivering the processing power was behind all of the gameplay, kind of working behind the scenes. But at the end of the day, for a game, or that you purchase the game in Google but not versa, that's kind of a oranges type of situation.
Yeah, I think some element of this, a good portion of it, just comes down to having faith that kind of operating on good faith, that Google's not like literally sitting there with this like shit-eating grin on their face, like oh god, we're gonna set this little trap for him here. We're gonna
$60. Oh damn it, kill it,
and literally just cut it out. I mean, they put out a little release that said, if for some reason a studio, okay, it's not, I guess it's not an apples to apples comparison, but they did say, make a point of saying, like, let's say a studio decides to stop working with Stadia. Well, Google is still going to make that game available, and I think they're just going to write it into their contracts. Look, if you make your game available on our platform at any given time, from henceforth, you're basically just agreeing that that's going to always be available on our platform. It sounds like the only reason that they would even try to guarantee that is if they, were writing that up in legal speak and shoving it in front of the developer's lawyer and saying you have to sign this or you can't work with us, sort of thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a licensing like cover your ass from Google's perspective, right?
Yeah.
And you want to continue to generate that revenue stream money there. I'm from cutting you off from that.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm just, again, you do have to take it a lot on faith, and it is kind of it's kind of a daunting prospect, I guess, because you're putting some money out there regardless. Like if you want to play the game, you have to put the $60 out there. That's $60 that you won't get back. You know what I'm saying? Or if you're all in, like I am with the Founders Day edition and games that on a list that you're planning on getting. Like I've never played a Baldur's Gate, but they're coming out with, what is it? Baldur's Gate 3 is going to be a launch title for them.
Really now? That's interesting.
Yeah, it was in their, not E3. They did their own Stadia Connect. I think it was either it was the first or second thing that we saw from them, but they were it was the first one. They were talking about Baldur's Gate 3, and like I said, I've never played one, but they showed the advertising, for that, and they even had an interview with the guy who's the studio that's working on that. And, titles like that I've never tried, I see this awesome advertisement for it. Pair that with my excitement for this new platform. I'm excited to try some of this stuff. I'm out here crossing my fingers, hoping my $140 didn't go to waste. But I can describe to you, okay, for those of you who are wondering, by the way, cloud gaming, is it for you? We haven't even got into xCloud yet. Apparently what's going on with xCloud, before I talk about the ideal, stream gamer, xCloud apparently, it sounds like to me what they're going to do is they're going to have this, whatever the next Xbox is, either that or the current Xbox One X, is going to function as the unit that you're playing your games on. So instead of the console being in your house, it's at Microsoft's house. And you're playing it on their stuff, and they're streaming it to you, but all the processing's being done on the back end, but on a single machine. The way that that's different from Stadia is that they've got this giant server farm with all this processing power, and they are literally, at least, again, I could be wrong. You can email us. We've got plenty of links and stuff in places. You can email me, tell me I'm wrong if I'm getting this wrong, but it sounds like to me that they will allocate as much power as it takes to keep your game running at 4K 60 frames per second. That is, if you have Founders Edition. If you don't have Founders Edition, you're stuck at 1080, which is still not bad. But, if you're shilling out that extra $10 a month, you'll get the 4K 60 frames. And the thing that's interesting, by the way, about that claim, the 4K with 60 frames, they are guaranteeing that you'll be able to experience that, as long as your internet connection's meeting their standards, you'll be able to play that without latency, almost guaranteed. Like, they came out and said it so strongly that it kind of had me scratching my head. Have you ever, either of you, have you heard of a company making such a strong, a guarantee the way that Google has said that latency won't be a problem? I don't think I have.
I'm just thinking about the latency. Every time we go back to the latency, it kind of blows my mind. Because you think about it, okay, it's acceptable for gaming. Your controller, milliseconds, your reaction time on top of that is about 300 second range. If you start adding hundreds and hundreds more on top of that.
Yeah,
forget who was saying this to us, but you think about the laws of physics, right? How quickly can you transmit an electron through a copper wire, which, by the way, is what your home internet probably is, unless you're one of those bastards in San Francisco who has fiber.
Fiber.
Through more copper, maybe through a fiber panel somewhere up to Google servers, and then all the way back down to you, and somehow they can guarantee that there's zero latency. I think that's horseshit unless they do something like predict what you're about to do, which, by the way, is how a lot of online gaming works. It predicts what you're about to do, and then it uses that to minimize latency. But I don't think that's what they're talking about. I don't think they're actually going to get to zero, but it even still blows my mind that they say they can have latency not be an issue.
Yeah, well, what I keep going back to, like, hey, Riley, put that down. Sorry. Kids are playing with stuff in the background. I told you don't come out. Kids. All right. So I keep going back to this test that I heard about. In an interview, one of the engineers who was working specifically on that problem from Google, was talking about the latency. And they said they did a field test in the wild, so to speak, where they sent some information from basically like an input information from a Stadia controller out to one of their data centers, and they were basically just testing the speed. Like, okay, how fast when I press, when I do this little action on my joystick, let's say to control the camera or move my character or whatever it is, they wanted to see how long it took for that action to be processed on the back end and sent back to the user's screen. And the action out and back was faster than the human brain's latency. However they measure the human brain latency. So now that's just one little isolated test. However, they did Project Stream with thousands of people prior to even announcing Stadia and officially. And based on the reviews that I'm seeing from the people who did Project Stream, it's very largely positive. There are some outliers out there that say, oh, well, I could notice the lag, blah, blah, blah. I mean, if you go into a test and they say, okay, you are streaming this game, you're not playing it on a console, you're streaming it over the internet. You kind of go in there with that preconception in your mind. Okay, what's your first concern when you're streaming a game is the latency, right? That's probably the main complaint that everyone would have.
Yeah, especially online.
If you go into that, it's kind of the placebo effect about that latency. Anything that goes wrong with that game, if it freezes even for a second, they're like, it's no good. It's the latency. This will never get off the ground, sort of thing. But there were so many testers that were part of that project that had good things to say about it, that the difference was imperceivable. I wish I could have been part of the test. I'd have firsthand experience. I'll tell you in November my experience. But
yeah,
all I have to go on right now is just what they claim. And like I said before, I could be one of those Debbie Downers, negative Nancys, whatever you want to call them. But frankly, we won't know until the thing's in our hand in November. For the founders, anyway. Next year for, whoever is just getting the regular edition.
I think this is the true test, and I'm going to open up a can of worms because we've never even talked about this in any of our prep or casual conversations. So this is going to be kind of interesting. But I pulled up some articles, TechCrunch, I don't know, yeah, the TechCrunch, there's an article titled, What Latency Feels Like on Google Stadia Cloud Gaming Platform. And in a nutshell, some Google engineers came out and said that the latency on their end is about 70 to 130 milliseconds, which is about the latency of a wireless controller. That's pretty darn good for what it is. Now, the question to me is, or the question that I have is, is that 70 milliseconds inclusive of the ISP's round trip latency. My ping times are pretty darn good. It's 13 right now on my pretty awesome gaming laptop that's hooked up via Wi-Fi right next to my router. I know it can get as bad as 60 or 130. 130 plus the 130 plus your 250 reaction time, that would be really bad if you have anything worse than, the tens of milliseconds. So that's concern number one. And then concern number two, and this is the can of worms, is we talked about internet speeds being crappy and data caps and all that stuff, right?
Oh, yeah.
Now that net neutrality, and again, email me if this is not a thing anymore, not a real concern anymore, but now that net neutrality is kind of in this net neutrality limbo, what's to stop them from deprioritizing latency traffic, at which point Stadia would be pretty much unusable through no fault of its own. So I think when we talk about the latency numbers, it's just too early to tell what will happen in a real test environment, not even a test environment, but a production environment. When it gets to your house, what is it really going to play like? For me right now, this very moment, it's probably going to be pretty awesome, but time will bear out whether or not ISPs deprioritize it, whether or not they have any issues with scaling in terms of all hitting that data center at once. I just think November is going to be really interesting bearing out the real numbers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on a number of Facebook groups that are all about Stadia. 100%, that's what they talk about the entire time. So, as far as that goes, what you doing, bud?
What about dinner?
Now, we'll talk about the latency and everything. Like, I play a lot of online games where, like, Rocket League, like, I don't have the best internet, but my latency usually stays around about 70 to 80 whenever I'm playing the Rocket League. And if you're going up against someone that they're latent at 20 or 30, you can notice that they have a quicker reaction when it comes to, like, heading the ball or something. So, with
This
Google
is Riley.
Stadia...
Sorry. Go ahead, Crash.
With Google Stadia, I could definitely see where latency would come into issue. If you're playing, like, a really action-intense game... Like, let's say you're playing Dark Souls, you need that quick reaction. And
yes, you would.
If you don't have the latency or whatever, you're gonna die a lot, which I can see a lot of people putting off game. Or if you're playing a really low intense game, like, I don't know, Final Fantasy, like the turn-based Final Fantasy, you could care less about latency at all.
Oh my word!
So that's definitely where your choice of titles gets limited if you have a higher latency.
Yeah, no, I agree. Stadia could be handicapped in terms of, competitive gaming. Like, there's that entire section of gamers, that entire cross-section of the gaming industry that's devoted to being able to play, on a competitive level. You require from the whatever platform you're using for it to be super low latency and steadily low latency. So when when they talk about this infinite scaling, like they can do this multiplayer that's thousands of players in one match versus being capped out at 32 or 64 or whatever. It's kind of concerning because if you Rod, business.
Sorry, I'm playing peekaboo in your head.
I know. But, yeah, I mean, when it comes to it being a competitive platform, I just don't know that it's there. I mean, and honestly, like I said before, if right now all it is a an accessory or some accoutrement to your current gaming setup, then, would you expect this side setup to be competitive? No, I wouldn't. I'm certainly not going to be hopping on any sort of Fortnite, match anytime soon with that, just because, what if the latency does become an issue? That's a big thing. We spent all this time, and I've been actually meaning, we're talking about the future of gaming in general, but we haven't even got to Riley. Scoop, bud. I'm trying to be serious. Go. No, I mean
I
it.
have thoughts on this. I'm just messing around.
Why so serious?
Go. Off you go. Run along. Hey.
Blake's not here to defend himself. This is infinitely better than video latency.
Yeah. Pro tip: don't run a podcast out of your home with children present. 'Cause this is what happened. Is the movie done?
No.
Okay, then go watch it. You ninny. You absolute ninny. There we go. Okay. Child free for a moment. What was he even saying? I don't know.
Talking about the latency and that impact and the impact on gaming or online gaming and in.
Oh well, no. I think I was moving on to like
The future,
next
Raymond.
next gen consoles. Okay, so I've been a PlayStation dude exclusive, well, not entirely exclusively. I do have an Xbox One and a PlayStation 4, a PlayStation 4 Pro, a Nintendo Switch. You know, I've got this laptop that I'm running stuff on right now, but it's not a gaming laptop. I can play Minesweeper with it.
It's a gaming laptop.
It's a gaming.
PC Master Race.
Oh, gee. Well, I tell you what. One of the
You can
interesting
run
conversations.
Minesweeper? My God, you got a high-end PC.
I know, bro. Like, you should see this Intel Pentium
Dear God.
2. No, it's not that bad. It's actually an i7, but it's not. This is not a performance PC by any stretch. But anyway, what I was going to say is, so we've got these new consoles coming out, and what are the buzzwords for these consoles? I mean, all you hear about is the 8K and ray tracing, and everyone's yelling about ray tracing way louder than they're talking about the 8K. And there's, certain. Well, I mean, 8K is great. Ray tracing. Ron, you and I were talking about that a little bit as far as what, the technical aspect of what's that going to mean for gaming. See if you can dumb it down for a redneck like myself.
The dumbest way to phrase what's going on with graphics processing in general is horribly dumb. Y'all have to science it up in here a little bit, okay?
I mean, I'll try.
The trend for gaming graphics is it is improving the fidelity with which photons bounce around your environment. That means you're improving how light reflects off of that stuff might be.
Yeah.
Tracing is just an extension of that. What is an extension of that? Concept of how should light bounce around your environment? The more power, the more graphics processing power you have, the more bounces you can make happen and the more light rays you can have going out at the same time. So when you see a reflection, well, when you see someone's face, for example, when you look at my glasses, and you might just see, okay, wait, let me get the perfect one here.
Yeah, there you go.
You might just see like a vaguely blue color right here. You could see all the inappropriate tabs that I have open on my PC.
Yeah, how many this time, Ron?
Wouldn't that be Dave's computer?
About to crash.
Not yours.
No,
Ron?
but
He has no more memory because he's got videos playing on.
including my VRAM. No,
Did you go allocate some more? Like, did you go into the system? Like,
Chris. I used a terabyte on my hard drive virtual memory.
you can only have one tab open at a time. Like, you can only absorb so much information in your facial orifices. That's what we're calling it, is information.
Oh, geez. No, but on a serious note, as I was saying, as we start to improve the fidelity, you'll start to see more and more detail in these types of reflections. You'll start to see things like, phone here with me, you'll start to see things like subsurface scattering, which is flashlight on my hand like this. You'll see that blocking it, there's this little region by my thumb that's pinkish where the light is coming through because the skin isn't perfectly opaque. Little things like that. Processing power improves.
Yeah,
It's just another one of those things in a long evolution of graphic stuff.
Yeah, I think the way that my little itty bitty brain is basically the way I think about it, the way that I try to process this information is that, when I look at a screen, I'm seeing a collection of pixels on this screen. No matter how you slice it, those pixels are just being assigned a color. What they're basically trying to do is automate as much of those color assignments as possible.
Correct.
To make it so that this image that you end up seeing is the most realistic that it can possibly be. And we could dive into how much resolution is going to be affected by making the leap to 8K. I'm gonna go out there and say that out on a limb and say that the jump to 8K may not be as perceptible as we think. It may not even be as perceptible as the leap from 720 to 1080, which I don't know. I'll probably get jumped all over for saying that, but unless you are a Visiophile, in terms of you just look for those kind of details and you can point out those differences to me, that's great, but not everyone is able to do that. Not everyone could look at that and be like, well, look, you've got 4K right here, here's 8K over here, and you could just tell by the aliasing over here on this image and blah, blah, blah. Look, at a certain point, your eyes can't process the difference anymore. It's so, the image is so crisp and clear, I guess, that your eyes just basically take it as this is. It's almost like I'm looking at an uncompressed image of real life around me, sort of thing. I do remember this. The first time I saw a 4K television, okay, I was walking through a Costco, I think it was. And they had you remember the curved screens? The Samsungs?
They're still a thing, by the way. I still want one of those.
Yeah, they used to have a lot of them, and it was almost exclusively what I saw was the curved screen 4K television. And I was looking at this big old beautiful picture that they had put on the screen as like a background. And I looked at that, I pointed at it, I was like, that looks better than real life. And 100% I meant it at the time. Honestly, though, okay, so I have, I've got my PS4 Pro, and I know that the PS4 Pro doesn't do true 4K. It does that checkerboarding to kind of, sort of fake being 4K. The upscaling or whatever that it tries to do to get in that ballpark. So I'll play Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and some of those details on there are so crisp and clean, and other things are just... Cross, you and I were talking about this. What kind of, you're always using what kind of armor? Like the fur or leather type armors, because the other ones just look too much like plastic?
Well, it's not that they look like plastic. It's just I'm not a fan of the metal armor in Odyssey. It's almost distracting from series.
Yeah, but those visuals, there's still yet a ton of improvement. I don't even think, there's not a ton of games that I think are taking full advantage of 4K resolution, if we're honest. They could stand to be tweaked a little bit to kind of get up to their potential, if you will. But
that's where the processing power of the PS4, whether you got the regular or the Pro, that's just where the limitation of the console is. It wasn't built for true 4K, so it's not going to be true 4K.
Oh, yeah. Well, and the Pro either, let's be honest, it's just not able to handle it. So, you've got the... what's interesting, okay, if you take the Xbox One X and you take the PS4 Pro, which are supposed to be... they're supposed to be rivals, right? But if you look at the tech specs, the Xbox One X is pretty superior just in the power department. But this next generation, though, they're both using their own custom version, but they're very similar processor. They're both using, or they're both claiming that they'll get to 8K. They're both claiming all these very almost identical stats. So if your stats are the same, what's the difference between the consoles if you're going to buy them? I'll throw mine out there.
Exclusives.
Well, yeah, you took it. Exclusives. So, who won the exclusives battle last generation? I think we all know. Wait, what, Ron? You cut out there for a second. I think the internet censored you because you were about to say, were you mouthing Xbox? I should slap you through your internet.
Xbox.
Yeah. It was definitely
Horizon and 3.
Oh, you're being serious. No, I mean you have the likes of Horizon Zero Dawn, God of War, Spider-Man, all these huge titles, the Uncharted series. I mean, there tons of these just amazing first-party titles. By the way, got to get my Google plug in here, otherwise they won't pay me. They're not paying me anyway, but I'm excited to see. Did I just pull out my headphone? Okay, I'm excited to see what Google does for exclusives. They said they've got their own. They've got a Stadia first-party studio. So Stadia Connect coming up on the 19th. Please show us some exclusives, please, and not just like the little cutesy games. I'm talking like a big AAA. Like, it needs to feel like a big AAA title. Google, if you're watching. You're not.
I'm sure
but
they are,
if you,
so they can pay you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they got to check it out and make sure I'm, shilling enough for them. But, yeah, when it comes time to release, I hope they have, a big AAA feeling launch title. Anyway, so Xbox, I feel like, knows that they have to step up. So I'm expecting to hear news, when the next Xbox drops. I mean, they're making big moves with Project X Cloud, but I'm expecting to hear that they're going to be coming out with some pretty good exclusives. Maybe some new ISPs. Hopefully, they're always buying up these. They're buying up these little studios left and right. So put it down. I guess.
Well, I mean, you're talking about like who won the exclusives. I mean, PlayStation. I'm all Sony. I don't own an Xbox. Sony had amazing exclusives with Horizon Zero Dawn, Spider-Man, God of War, and until Xbox bought them out, we had the Final Fantasy series. I mean, we had 10, 10-2, 7, 8, 9. Everything was PlayStation. But on the flip side, if you're not into like adventure games like Horizon Zero Dawn was, or action games like God of War, Xbox has amazing exclusives with Forza. The Forza series is the best racing series you can ever play, and it's Xbox only.
Yeah, granted,
and then
but that's
Halo
one though.
Halo has always been an amazing shooter. The Gears series has always been an amazing series to play, and that's Xbox only. So I mean, it really just depends what type of genre you play, who you could say won the exclusive battle.
Yeah, I guess. You could say, from an Xbox standpoint, you might be all in on those particular games you listed off. I guess what I would have to see is, let's take a look at some information from people who were kind of on the outside looking in sort of thing, that weren't, lifetime Xbox or lifetime PlayStation gamers. Let's just, just see what their opinion is, maybe. I would have to see, overall. But if you're to ask a lot of gamers that have both consoles, I'm just saying, I think a lot of them would point to PlayStation as the winner of that series, mainly because, those were some amazing single-player titles. I haven't even finished Horizon. Oh, yeah. I haven't even finished Horizon Zero Dawn yet, but I feel bad because I'm finally, after how many months of owning Odyssey, and I'm finally finishing Odyssey, and I know Odyssey's not exclusive, but I'm trying to work through my backlog, okay? It's taken a while. Ron, you have what I would call the eternal backlog. I don't know if you're
still playing Black Flag.
Wait, have you even started that one?
Not like halfway through. That's fine.
Yeah, but then I'm over here raving about Odyssey. Again, this is game. This is game.
Origins too, so I'm catching up. Like,
Did
we'll
you?
be halfway through Odyssey.
Yeah, I'm like level 70 something. Last time I talked to you, Crush, I was like, what, level 14 on Odyssey? And then today I'm like, hey, I'm level
Yeah.
77. You're like, oh, shit. Yeah,
You've
I've been.
done
think you,
nothing
hacked
else
your
but play that
levels.
game.
I literally have been giving up my physical health and sleep and screwing up my entire life to play that game. Yes. But it's such a good game. And I'm still only on chapter 2 of the last DLC. I have another episode of that after I finish killing off the Order of Ancients or whatever the current thing is. Legacy of the First Blade or something like that. I don't know what it's called. I just know that I hope I can finish it sometime soon so I can get some sleep. I've been staying up till like 4 in the morning and turning around and leaving for work at 6:30.
Jeez.
It's not good. Man, we ran long on some of those topics, guys. It's late. I tell you what, though, we're going to continue to talk about the future of gaming. I want to let you know before we part ways. Thank you so much for watching. If you've been watching, we know it's like, it's our first. We're just going to pretend that first episode, like the first one, didn't happen. This right here is our first episode.
Dave, you're delirious and drunk again. This is the first episode.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Blake. Yeah, everything that you did on our first, imaginary episode, we just imagined it. Hopefully, rip your audio codec. We need to get that fixed. He told me I can make fun of him, but let's be honest, I didn't need his permission. I was going to do it anyway.
You're just now telling us this at the end of the episode.
Well, so anyway, make sure to join us on Twitter. Search for us, Rants and Saves. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. We also have a Facebook page. We're gonna try to make sure we post fairly regularly each week at least. And don't forget to follow the channel. We'd really appreciate it. We're gonna try to get this thing going. We just want to be the fun-loving place that you go to talk about video games and hear inappropriate jokes. So we'll leave all the porn tabs up to Ron. Don't accidentally. The reason we have to leave them to Ron is because we're streaming from my computer. If we had it on my computer, I might accidentally have a window open that gets me banned from Twitch. Let's not do that. All right. Join us
So
next.
you made sure you close that window before this started interrupt.
Well, I have 2 laptops, and I'm going to leave it at that.
No wonder your arm has been moving this entire episode.
Which one, though? I mean, I kind of switch off. I'm a switch hitter. Crush. Yeah, Crush
You
is.
can't wear out one, not the other.
Yeah. Well, Ron's over here like, hand check.
Disclaimer. If you see me waving my arms around under the table, there's a good reason for that. I'm playing with my sword.
Yeah, what do we
At
call
least he admits it.
He's playing with his rapist. Rapier. No, long sword.
That's okay.
Long sword. Tell us about the sword, Ron. What's so special about it?
It's mine, I guess. I don't know. Okay, funny story about this. If we're
Yeah, I mean, we're.
Craigslist. Now, am I not supposed to talk about my sword and how I found it with some weirdo on Craigslist?
Oh no, please do. I love story time.
I don't know why. Every now and then, I have the urge to go onto Craigslist and buy weird stuff. Like, I think within the last 6 months, I looked for, despite me having neither a trailer or proximity to the ocean, I looked for bows and arrows. I think I looked for like a player piano, even though I have like 5 pianos in my house.
5 What? I mean, I know you.
Keyboards. They're like electronic keyboards, and I just like have amassed them somehow over the years. Anyways, let's not get into that because that is not the story at hand.
We'll have to save that for another episode.
Sir Stabby, my sword.
Stabby. Did you name it? Did you legitimately name your sword?
I just came up with that here and now. I really should name it something though. So if you're watching this, name suggestions are welcome. The dirtier, the better. Anyhow, I got the urge to look for a sword one day, and a weeb who just randomly like buys stuff from the mall, like buys swords from the mall, like an idiot. I'm doing with these. So I was looking for a halfway decent sword. This guy in La Jolla, which is where I live, whatever, that's fine. A fairly affluent city near my house had this sword right here, which is a replica of an Italian longsword, and it actually is really sharp and can be used in battle. Why a hippie surfer dude had one in his house, I don't know. It's like 7 feet long.
I mean, it's the drugs. It has to be. Why else would you have?
Yeah.
Why else would you have a rapey sword in your house?
Well,
Matthew McConaughey in that one movie, kind of like hippie. We're talking like old school hippie, like Paul McCartney's age.
Oh well.
With these swords in his house, I didn't ask questions. I paid him $150, which is a steal, and I got the fuck out of there.
It's literally made of steel. This is a steel made of steel.
I see what you did there.
Right? Well, good story, Ron. You made it out alive, as we can all see. You were holding a different one pre-show, though.
Yes, I also had my longsword, which I have a story for that too. I bought it off of Amazon. That's the story. Boom.
I like
I'm about like a.
I like that
I
one
don't
better.
like short stories.
The downside to this one is you can't do the flashy like cutty stuff with it. This is like the Zorro looking. I mean, even Zorro is slightly inaccurate because you can't like be blunt. Actually, I could probably do that with the other one too, but this is literally just blunter than a ruler, and it's pretty pointy.
Pointy but blunt.
Yes.
Huh.
You're supposed to do the stabby, not the slicey.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, I could come up with some euphemisms for that. But I'm tired. All right. Well, this has been Rants and Saves. We sure appreciate your viewership. If you would please do us the honor of hitting that follow button, or if you never want to see us again, just avoid us like the plague. Either way, we're going to be on next week at 8 p.m. Tuesday, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. So, same place, more interesting gaming news, facts, and whatnot. And if we can't find any gaming stuff to talk about, then we're going to make fun of how much of a weeb Ron is. All right? So, y'all have a good week. Signing off.